Things are heating up for the Chiefs as they gear up for their first preseason game. From signing their franchise kicker to a major contract extension, and with players getting a bit chippy during practice, it's clear these guys are itching to hit the field for real. Let's dive into the top highlights and standout moments as Casey preps for their upcoming game. Today, the Chiefs were back in pads for a scorching summer practice in the Midwest heat. Former Raiders head coach John Gruden made a surprising appearance for the second day in a row, sporting Chiefs gear. It's a bit odd seeing him in Kansas City apparel, but he and head coach Andy Reid have a history together from their days with the Packers in the 90s. Reid mentioned it's great to have Gruden around, praising his smart football mind and valuable input. Unfortunately, several players were sidelined today. Linebacker Nick Bolton sat out with an elbow issue. Safety Justin Reid had a quad problem. Cornerback Kelvin Joseph was out with a hamstring injury. Wide receiver Jalen Hack had a shoulder issue. Defensive end Charles Omenihu had a knee problem. Defensive end BJ Thompson was ill, and defensive tackle Derek Inati had a triceps issue. Justin Reid and BJ Thompson are on the non-football injury NFI list, which I need to clarify since I mistakenly said Reid was on the PUP list earlier. Despite that, Reid and Thompson have been sidelined throughout training camp. Right now, only Nadi and Omenihu are on the PUP list, with quarterback Jalen Watson and offensive lineman Joe Thuney coming off it recently. Nadi is healing well and might soon be off that list too. Defensive tackle Chris Jones had a minor shoulder tweak today, but Coach Reid doesn't seem too worried about it. We'll see how he fares tomorrow, but hopefully it's just a small issue given the big investment in him as the top defensive player. On the defensive side, keep an eye on quarterback Jalen Watson. He's coming back from shoulder surgery and recently shed his no-contact jersey. Although he was back in it today, he still made a splash by nearly picking off a pass and then snagging a diving interception off Patrick Mahomes. Watson celebrated by tossing the ball into the crowd, showing he's eager to fight for that cornerback spot. With Nick Bolton and Justin Reid out, the Chiefs' first-team defense looked like this during their dime personnel walkthrough. Drue Tranquill was at linebacker, with Jalen Watson and Nazeeh Johnson on the outside, McDuffie in the slot, and Hicks as the dime safety. Shamari Connor and Brian Cook were at safety. In base defense, Jack Cochran stepped in as the Mike linebacker, with Tranquill remaining at the Will linebacker spot unless needed elsewhere. We'll discuss more about Tranquill and Cochran's little scuffle with the offense later. Andy Reid praised Jack Cochran for his versatility and leadership, saying he knows every linebacker position and has been a solid replacement for Bolton. Despite Jalen Watson and Nazeeh Johnson returning from injuries, Joshua Williams is still working with the second-team defense but occasionally joins the first team. Johnson, back in pads for the first time in a week, had a solid performance, including a pass breakup. Keith Taylor is another cornerback making waves with the first team, especially since Kelvin Joseph is sidelined. Taylor recorded what would have been a sack on Mahomes and had a tough one-on-one against Xavier Worthy. Worthy managed to shake Taylor and make a catch, showcasing his skills. At left guard, Joe Thuney is gradually ramping up and hasn't been in team drills yet, with Mike Sendo filling in. Kingsley Suamataia is currently the starting left tackle and seems to be solidifying his spot, with no rotation between him and Wiley. Suamataia faced stiff competition from defensive players like Mike Dana and Chris Jones, holding his ground well. Nate Taylor from The Athletic also reported that the Chiefs are looking to extend Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith, keeping a key part of their offensive line intact. And if you missed it, Pretty Ricky dropped some big news last week. The Chiefs made big waves today with Harrison Butker's new deal, making him the highest-paid kicker in the NFL. Butker and the Chiefs struck a 4-year, $25.6 million extension, including $17.8 million in guaranteed money. This deal puts him slightly ahead of Justin Tucker and Jake Elliott, with an average of $6.4 million per year. Given Butker's role as the team's MVP last season and his crucial contributions, locking him in was a no-brainer. He's one of the top 5 most important players on the team alongside Mahomes, Kelce, and Chris Jones. Butker expressed his excitement on social media saying, "There's no place I'd rather be than the Chiefs." With this extension in place, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Are you happy to see Butker stay, or would you have preferred seeing him leave? Next up, let's talk about Nate Taylor's report on possible extensions for Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. If the Chiefs manage to extend both of these key players, they'll secure 3 out of 4 big players on contract years. Nick Bolton, the fourth, is currently dealing with injuries, which might delay extension talks with him, Extending Humphrey and Smith would be a win for keeping Patrick Mahomes well protected. But here's a challenge. The Chiefs need to balance their budget. They're already paying Jawan Taylor $20 million a year and might need to extend Trey Smith for a similar amount. Add in Humphrey's likely top-of-the-market salary and Joe Thuney's $26 million per year next season, and that's a hefty sum tied up in the offensive line. If they manage to sign Smith, it might hint at the end for Thuney next year, who will be 33 and could be cut with just $1 million in dead money. Nate Taylor is plugged into the Chiefs' plans, so his mention of Smith and Humphrey is noteworthy. What do you think? Can the Chiefs afford to pay for 4 of their 5 linemen at these rates? Or would extending Smith mean letting Thuney go next year? Share your thoughts in the comments. Now switching gears back to practice updates. 2 wide receivers, Justin Watson and Kadarius Toney, returned to the field today. Watson, who had a foot issue, looked fine during a full padded practice and worked with the second team. It's great news that his foot seems to be in good shape. Kadarius Toney also practiced but ended early, riding back to the facility in a cart. It didn't seem like he re-injured his ankle, so it might have been due to the intense heat. It's possible he just needed some hydration. The hot weather may have contributed to some chippiness among the players, making it a tough day out there. Before diving into the rest, let's talk about Kadarius Toney. One key way he might make the roster is by landing the top punt returner spot. He's potentially the most dangerous returner the team has. Today, the top 3 return options on the field were Mecole Hardman, Xavier Worthy, and Nico Riggio. Worthy might just be a backup to Cole, especially if he plays a significant role on offense. Nico Riggio is also trying his hardest to secure a roster spot, which is good news for him. The practice weather was a sweltering upper 80s with typical August humidity, which may have contributed to some players getting a bit testy. Toward the end of practice, tensions flared. Thanks to KC Sports Network, we saw Mahomes trying to calm linebacker Drue Tranquill, who had just ripped off his helmet and tossed it. Mahomes was seen guiding Tranquill away from the commotion. On the other side of the fray, linebacker Jack Cochran was seen shoving after Rice threw the football at his helmet. It was a heated moment, and while the footage only shows part of the incident, Pete Sweeney from Arrowhead Pride revealed more details. During an 11-on-1 play, Rice caught a pass and then threw the ball at Cochran, who retaliated with a shove. Drue Tranquill likely stepped in to defend Cochran. The scuffle resulted in Rice throwing up, possibly from getting hit or the heat. It's worth noting that last year, Cochran also found himself in the middle of a skirmish with Travis Kelce. Despite the heated moments, practice continued smoothly, and this scuffle seems minor compared to some other teams' wild training camp fights. Switching to some impressive plays, new punter Matt Araiza made a splash with his booming kicks. Araiza spoke to the media, expressing his gratitude for being with the Chiefs. He's training alongside veteran specialists and coaches who are helping him adapt, especially as a left-footed punter, which is rare in the NFL. Araiza hopes to keep those punts dropping during the regular season, which can be a huge momentum shift in games. Though he lacks placeholder experience, special teams coordinator Dave Tube noted that Araiza and Butker are syncing well. Araiza showcased his strong leg, punting 75-yard bombs effortlessly, and also showed off his skill in practice. Mecole Hardman continues to be quick and effective as a returner and is likely to start as the punt returner unless Toney grabs the role. In practice highlights, tight ends Irv Smith Jr. and Baylor Cupp had a rough day with some drop passes. Smith's drop wasn't caught on camera, but Kupp's drop of a perfect pass from Wentz was more visible. On the bright side, Noah Gray stood out again, catching a pass from Mahomes and turning upfield for extra yards. Gray also made a great one-handed grab yesterday. Travis Kelce made a short catch and then pitched the ball back to Pacheco, who sprinted down the sideline. Expect to see Kelce do this in games to keep teammates alert and ready. Pacheco also took a direct snap in a wildcat formation, though it didn't gain many yards. Andy Reid praised Pacheco's performance, saying he's done well in all aspects of his role. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, mostly working as RB3 with the second team, had a notable run with a big hole on the left side as he prepares for his 5th season. That's a wrap on today's practice highlights. Let me know what stood out to you in the comments. Until next time, let's go.